What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Thank you guys for being here. So today I have a very special meal for you guys. I'm going to be cooking chicken parm and eggplant parm as well for anybody who's a vegetarian. It's the same process. And this meal is very special to me because I grew up Italian. You know, we ate a lot of Italian food. I've worked in Italian restaurants. And there's just nobody in the world who doesn't like chicken parm. And if you don't, then you're a freak. So today, I'm just gonna show you guys the ingredients I'm using. I'm making a very special cheesy garlic bread. And for that, we're gonna need cream cheese. Now, I don't stray away from Philadelphia brand. This is the top tier cream cheese in my opinion, and that's all I'll use. So we need cream cheese, we need ricotta, mozzarella, just some garlic and onions and things that I have right here. We have some spaghetti to go with our red sauce. We're gonna be making pasta sauce today. I have a nice seeded Italian loaf. This is great. So I have some things for the sauce as well. I have tomato paste, I have crushed tomatoes, and I have San Marzano tomatoes. For the breading, we have breadcrumbs and eggs and flour. We got a little red wine here. That's gonna go into our sauce. That's optional. You don't have to add red wine if you don't want to. But all of these ingredients here are gonna make a delicious meal. We have a nice store-bought spaghetti here. Honestly, the products from the store nowadays, they're very good quality. Now, homemade pasta is always good as well, but that's a whole process. If you guys would like to see some homemade pastas in another video, comment down below and I can surely do that. But for today, you know, the store-bought pastas are great for us. I have my water boiling, and I just want my water to be as salty as the sea, according to Chef Huber. So we're gonna go ahead and make sure that's as salty as some seawater. I think that should be good. A little splash of olive oil, and the pasta is going to go right into the boiling water. As soon as you drop it in, mix it up, or the pasta is going to stick to itself, and you're going to have lots of clumps of pasta. Occasionally you'll come and stir your pasta, or else it may stick to the bottom of your pan. You don't want that. You don't want it to stick together, nothing like that. I usually tell a pasta is done. Yeah, it'll be hot, but you just have to be careful. I'll grab a piece and that's tasting like it's perfectly done. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this pan of hot pasta and pour it right into a strainer I have ready. It's important to run cold water over your pasta to stop it from overcooking and becoming gummy and soggy. All we're gonna do is we're gonna hit it with a splash of olive oil just to prevent clumping and sticking so it doesn't form into one big ball. And then I'm just gonna mix it up. And this pasta is perfect and it's ready to go for when we need it. The good base to a nice Italian red sauce is gonna be thyme. You know, flavors develop over time. The first step we're gonna do, I have some bulbs here. Bulb is another term for things in the onion family. So I have onions, this is an elephant garlic. It's just garlic but larger, and shallots. Shallots are very good. And I'm just gonna small dice everything. You're gonna start at the top, and you have to be very careful of your fingers. And I'm just gonna go almost all the way through, from top to bottom, in about a 1/4 inch intervals. And then I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna slice almost all the way through the onion, as close as you feel comfortable getting it. And then I'm gonna turn the onion, chop, chop, chop. And now I'm gonna do the same thing with the shallots and the garlic. That looks good. So the key to any good sauce is gonna be developing layers of flavor. So the first step for developing a layer of flavor is gonna be we're gonna take our bulbs, our shallots, onion, and garlic, and we're gonna sweat it out in some hot olive oil. So I can see the onions are starting to get nice and translucent. You can see they're being cooked down. They have this nice shininess to them. And now the next step is we're gonna add some tomato paste. This is concentrated tomatoes, and this is gonna add a lot of flavor to the dish. The tomato paste is getting nice and caramelized, and it's just about time to add my wine. And boom, it's open. And I'm just gonna deglaze with some of my red wine. This is another layer of flavor that I am adding to the sauce. We're gonna open up our canned tomatoes. I have San Marzano tomatoes, which are regarded as being very high quality and the best for sauce. And I have some crushed tomatoes too, just for some textural variety. A very important part of cooking is washing your hands. It's no problem to touch it with your bare hands. A lot of people seem to have a problem with that, but as long as you keep your hands nice and clean, it's totally okay. You know, your hands are the best tool in the kitchen. There's no other tool that can replicate what they can do, and you're just inhibiting yourself if you don't use these properly. So after we wash our hands, what I want to do with these San Marzano tomatoes, because they come whole and peeled, you can see this is the kind of product you're getting. And that's too big for a sauce. Now, if you have an immersion blender, that works great, that you can blend your whole pan of sauce. I don't have an immersion blender, so what I just do is I come in here with my hands and I tear these tomatoes into nice sized chunks. Gotta try your wine. So I have my crushed San Marzano tomatoes in here that I just did. Here's my crushed tomatoes from a can. These are basil flavored. You can get garlic, regular, whatever flavor you prefer. And now I'm gonna do some fresh tomatoes too. I'm just gonna give them a small dice. I'm gonna take the end off, just like that. We don't need that piece. Stand it up. It's always safer to work on a flat surface. If you're trying to cut the tomato while it's rolling around, that's potentially dangerous to you. We're gonna stand it up on the flat surface. We're gonna go in half. We're gonna spin it. We're gonna go in half again. And then you can just lay it down and just, that's perfectly fine, especially since it's gonna cook down for some hours. That's how a good tomato sauce should be. We're just gonna add the fresh tomatoes in with the canned tomatoes, and this is all gonna join the red wine and the onion reduction. So the reason why we like to use canned tomatoes and fresh tomatoes is just for some variety. The fresh tomatoes are gonna offer something that the canned tomatoes don't, and vice versa. It's all about having different textures, different flavors, different sweetnesses. There's no right and wrong when it comes to cooking. There's only preference and what you like. You can see it's reducing well, it's nice and thick. And now it's time to add all of our other tomato product. So here I have all the fresh, all the canned, and it's all gonna go in for preferably at least a couple of hours. Just so it can cook down, all the flavors can get to know each other. I have some just generic Italian seasoning here, whatever you got on hand. Basil, oregano, thyme, savory, marjoram, any of that works. And I'm just gonna throw it in with the sauce. I'm gonna give it some pepper, some black pepper. I'm gonna give it some salt. Tomato sauce does not need sugar. There's enough sugar naturally in the tomatoes. Some people will add it, that's totally preference and it's up to them. And I'm gonna add some crushed red pepper flakes too. Guys, now it's on to some cheesy garlic bread. And this is a specialty of my mother. I grew up on this and it's fantastic. Everybody who I've ever presented it to says, oh my gosh, I need this recipe. Well, here it is, so you're in luck. We got ricotta cheese, we got cream cheese, we have mozzarella, and then I'm just gonna season it with some onion and garlic powder and some fresh garlic as well. You can use pre-shredded mozzarella, that's totally fine. I'm just gonna cut it into small pieces. It's best to take your cream cheese out when you're first starting your meal. It makes it a whole lot easier to work with when it's nice and soft and pliable. Cream cheese in the bowl. Ricotta in the bowl, a nice couple dollops of ricotta. We're gonna go ahead and fine dice this garlic, take the butt off, and then I'm just gonna cut it in half. It's always easier to work on a flat surface, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna julienne. And julienne means cut it into very thin strips. This is what they all look like. So then after my julienne is over, I'm gonna line up all the thin little strips, and I'm gonna turn them sideways, and I'm gonna come back and get a cross-section cut of that. And this is gonna leave me with tiny little squares of garlic. That's called a brunoise, a French word that just means a very small square. Garlic going in with the ricotta and the cream cheese. I actually do recommend the pre-shredded mozzarella. It's easier to just mix that in there. For the chicken parm and the eggplant parm, I do recommend this whole milk mozzarella. It's better melting. better stretch, and better taste. I'm just gonna give it all a rough chop. It doesn't need to be any specific size. And you don't need to spend long on this. However it looks right now, that's probably about pretty good. You just see I have a bunch of tiny little chunks. That's all we want because we're gonna bake it and it's gonna melt. We're just gonna hit it with a little black pepper, a little salt, a splash of olive oil for some flavor, some onion and garlic powder, just to reinforce that flavor. And then the final step is some Parmigiana. Now we're just gonna give it a good mix. We're gonna beat up the cream cheese, we're gonna beat the ricotta, and we're rocking and we're rolling. And then the piece de resistance, I'm just gonna hit it with a chiffonade of basil. I take the basil, I put it into my cheese mixture, and this is ready to smear on the bread and bake it. So this is our eggplant. This is an Italian eggplant, perfect for eggplant parm. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna salt it because the eggplant has a lot of bitter liquid in it. So when you salt it, the salt pulls out the moisture and it makes your end product taste better. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the head as close to the top as we can. I'm gonna remove the butt just so we have a nice even ground to work with. And then it's optional whether or not you wanna skin your eggplant. That is how I believe eggplant parm should be done. But once again, you don't have to do this step. And we're gonna slice it down vertically. And you want it to be kind of nice and thick. The end piece you'll never get a great cut from, although it's still usable. So the reason we don't want it to be too thin is because when we fry it, when we bread it and fry it, we need time for the breading to get crunchy. And if it's too thin, the eggplant will turn to mush. It will overcook. So something like this, that's a great size for me. And now I'm gonna throw it onto a wire rack and I'm gonna salt it. The salt is gonna extract all the brown, bitter moisture out of these eggplants, and it's gonna make our end product taste just a little better. And we just let it sit there. And now we're gonna do our chicken breast. Chicken breast is the preferred cut we use for this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna remove the excess fat. I'm gonna get rid of these white caps that I don't want. Just trim it up, make it look a little prettier. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna butterfly it, which means we're gonna slice it in half. I'm keeping pressure to make sure I get a nice even cut all the way through. I open it up like a book. And what you're gonna see is a little restaurant trick. I'm gonna lay a piece of plastic wrap over it, and I'm gonna take a butcher's hammer or a small saucepan, a rolling pin, whatever you got, and I'm just gonna beat it until it's thin. And this is how you get the beautiful, huge pieces of chicken parm when you go to a nice Italian restaurant. The standard breading procedure is named aptly so, because this is how you should bread things almost all the time. You're gonna require a 3-compartment setup. We have flour, egg wash, and breadcrumbs. And what I'm gonna do to the egg wash is I'm just gonna add a little splash of milk to it to thin it out. Even though the breadcrumbs already come seasoned, we're still gonna season the breadcrumbs a little more, and we're gonna season the flour a lot. So you need seasoned flour and seasoned breadcrumbs, but you don't put any seasoning in the eggs. Here I have a mixture, as you can see, of Italian breadcrumbs and panko. Panko is a Japanese breadcrumb, and the reason why I add that is just for a little bit of extra crunch. They're both gonna get some salt and some pepper. And now I'm just gonna hit them both with a little onion and a little garlic powder. And this is building the layers of flavor. We're going to Flavor Town, baby. It is very important to do this in as big a container as you can find, because if you're using small containers, you go to dip your eggplant in, you go to dip your chicken in, and it's all flying out the side. You got flour all over your counter, you got egg wash everywhere. So the deeper the container, the better. So we're gonna go flour, egg, breadcrumbs. And now it's very important that you have one wet hand and one dry hand, because if I keep going back and forth between the eggs and the flour, I'm gonna get monster fingers. So I'm gonna designate my left hand as the wet hand, and you're just gonna roll it around, make sure it gets a good coating. That looks perfect. And now into the breadcrumbs where my dry hand will take over. And I'm just gonna throw some breadcrumbs on top. I'm gonna spin it around. I'm gonna press them in, make sure it's coated nice and good. And that is a perfect eggplant cutlet right there. That will fry up beautifully. And then we're just gonna do that process for the whole stack of them here. For the chicken, the process will be the exact same as well. And once we fry these, they're gonna be nice, crispy, delicious goodness. You see, I can have a little dry spot where the egg didn't adhere to the flour. It's totally okay to go back in here, give that section a little dip, and come back into the breadcrumbs. And now everywhere is properly coated just like it should be. We have our oil that's getting nice and hot. I have it on a medium heat, which is okay. Let's see how that looks perfect. And we're just gonna put these in slowly. You don't wanna drop them or else the oil will splash you. And 3 at a time is perfect. You don't want to overcrowd your pan. So these are just going to go until they get nice and brown and crispy, and then we're going to be going to Flavor Town. Alrighty, so it's time to do the chicken now in the same exact way. You can pre-season your chicken with a little salt and pepper if you'd like, but it's totally not necessary considering we seasoned the flour, we seasoned the breadcrumbs. Our sauce is nice and well seasoned. This is what I mean when I say adding layers of flavor. We're just gonna go ahead and make sure our chicken is entirely covered. Chicken completely covered in flour, right into the egg wash. If you do not bread your food in this order, flour, egg wash, breadcrumbs, you can't guarantee that it's gonna come out correct because things may not stick properly. It may come off in the frying process, and this is perfect. This is a nice, big, beautiful chicken cutlet ready for the hot oil. And I'm sure most of you guys know when you're frying something, this is the color you want to see. I can feel that it's nice and crispy and perfectly done. We put it on the wire rack so it can drain without getting soggy. And you can see that these are all perfectly done. And not only can you see that they're perfectly done, but you can hear it too, because eggplant's not making that sound unless the bread is perfectly crispy. And now we can go ahead and get our chicken in there. One piece at a time is all we're gonna be able to do because these are huge. Chef Sawyer's got his Italian seeded loaf ready, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna come right down the middle like they do at Subway. Now I'm gonna take my filling, my mixture, and I'm gonna be very generous with this. Smearing this good ricotta, garlic, cream cheese with some ooey gooey mozzarella in there. And once you have your garlic bread already, your cheesy garlic bread, this is gonna go into a 400-degree oven for maybe about 10 minutes until it starts to get toasted and crispy and the cheese on top starts to turn a little brown. That's exactly how you want it. We're gonna transfer our cheesy garlic bread to a sheet tray while our oven preheats to 400 degrees. So as you can see, our sauce is ready. Our chicken is nice and crispy. This is ready. And here you can see we have a ridiculously large fillet. So what we do is we have our eggplant and we have our chicken. We're gonna add a great ladle of sauce right over the top. Our sauce is a nice chunkiness. There's some great texture here. And what I do with my eggplant parm is I like to stack them up. I like to make layers of flavor. So it'll get some Parmesan, and then we'll do another eggplant, a little more sauce, some more Parmesan. The chicken can get a little Parmesan too. One more layer of sauce for our nice tall stacked eggplant tower. And then we're gonna just cover it entirely with our cheese. And now this is gonna go in the oven to broil. And the cheese is gonna melt and become ooey gooey delicious. We're gonna take our cooked pasta and we're gonna add it back to the sauce to just get it heating up. We're almost there. So our chicken and our eggplant is nice and broiled. You can see that cheese has melted and bubbled up deliciously. So we're gonna take that out. All right, the eggplant's done, the chicken parm is done, the cheesy bread just came out of the oven. This is perfect, that's exactly what you're looking for. I got some chiffonade basil here. I'm just gonna garnish it with some chiffonade basil. And then I'm gonna go ahead and slice it into nice cheesy bread portions. And here you guys have it, Chef Sawyer's chicken parmigiana with garlic cheesy bread and Chef Sawyer's eggplant parmesan tower. Make this at home and you will not be disappointed. Cut.